back to my channel, and if you're new here then welcome. My name is Maddie, and today I'll be sharing with you the best and worst books I read in 2021. I try to zoom out of frame a little more than I usually do just so I can show off my shirt, but you still can't really see it. It's still cut off. It is of Mickey Mouse though. It's super cute, but unfortunately you can only see up to here. Anywho, today I'll be sharing, like I said, the best and worst books that I read in 2021, which I don't have a ton to show because, like I've been saying, my reading in 2021 has only spanned from September to now in December. So I only have 4 months worth of books I've read to show. But I still read enough to where I could make a best and worst list. I, so far, as of this moment, have read 32 books this year. 32 books in the past 4 months, which is insane for me, so I still have quite a bit of a pool of books to choose from. So I have 6 best books and 6 worst books. It just kind of worked out that way, that I had 6 best and 6 worst. That was not intentional. But I'm glad it worked out that way because what I decided to do is show a worst book and then a best book, a worst book and a best book, and switch off as I go down my rankings, which I have ranked these from least favorite book to most least favorite book, and least favorite book to most favorite book. I just kind of like doing that way in a true top 6 style. Also, I should mention that these weren't, actually none of these were 2021 releases for that year. These are just all books that I read in 2021 that I either liked or disliked. So no 2021 releases at all, just these are the books that I read in this year. Just wanted to clarify that. At number 6, worst book. So this one is more of a dishonorable mention because I actually DNF'd this book. I read about 50% of it, so I still kind of count it as read because I finished the majority of it. But yeah, it was a DNF, so take my thoughts on it with a grain of salt, but I still really disliked it from what I did read, so I'm going to mention it anyway, and that is The Hating Game. So I read this book this month, in the month of December, and I have yet to do my December wrap-up, so I'll be talking about more of my thoughts on this book in my wrap-up. So because of that, I'll only share a little bit of my thoughts on it here, but yeah, this one was really disappointing. This is a romance book that has been hyped up for ages. It is an enemies to lovers romance. Because of that, I thought I would like it because that's one of my favorite romance tropes, but this one fell so flat for me. I actually had several problems with it, and I'll list them briefly right here. The first one is that, yeah, this is an enemies to lovers romance, but the enemies part of the relationship doesn't last very long. And with my enemies to lovers romances, I like the hating part to be dragged out a bit more, and I felt like the romance just started way too quickly for me, to where there wasn't enough of that angsty enemies period between them that I like. The only hate part that comes between these two is that they just bicker while they're working because they're co-workers. They like bicker in the office sometimes, and that's about it. And I don't find that really a hating period. It's more of them just, you know, doing fun little bickerings. So that made no sense to me. Also, the dialogue between these two is so unnatural. I don't know if that's just me, but I really did not like the dialogue in this book. It felt like the characters were talking a way that, you know, real people just wouldn't talk. And overall, I just found it just so boring. I found the characters so uninteresting. Also, another problem with it, I felt like it was very info dumpy in the beginning. And so the beginning of the book just lost me, and I think that was a major part why this book fell flat for me. Because whenever a book has info dumping in the first few pages, I am usually guaranteed not to enjoy that book because info dumping just makes it really confusing as to what's actually going on, because so much information is literally dumped on me to the point where I can't completely process it, and that's what happened in this book as well. So it was just really disappointing. I really wanted to love this one more because it's so hyped up, but it was just not for me. And so I DNF'd it, and I'm never going back to it. And now for my 6th best book I read this year, and that is It Ends With Us by Colleen Huber, another book that I read in December, so I will be talking about it more in my December wrap-up, but I will share my brief thoughts here. So this was the last book I read, and wow, it just I don't even know what to say. It just hit me so hard. Everyone had warned that this book is very emotional, and it is. And beyond that, it just has so many valuable lessons in it. I actually don't want to talk much about what this book is about, because I do think you need to go into this book knowing nothing about what it's about. So I won't even explain the synopsis or anything. But just know that it is beautiful. It will leave you thinking about real life topics that are so important, and will give you a new perspective on the way this topic is handled, in a way that will make you think about the other side of the situation that we don't usually think about. And I know I'm being so vague, but I can't give you more than that. The characters are lovable. The romance, the true romance that goes on in this book is to die for. I highly recommend it. And because I can't talk much about what this book is about, I will for sure be doing a review on this book, a separate review that includes spoilers, because I think that's needed in the case for this book. I don't do video book reviews anymore, but I think this book calls for it, and I really want to do that. But for now, just know it is amazing. It isn't my favorite Colleen Huber book, I will say that, but I still loved it immensely. And spoiler alert, every single Colleen Huber book I read this year is on this list. So I'll be talking about a lot of Colleen Huber's books on this one. And 5th place worst book I read this year is 𝑇𝑜𝑑𝑎𝑦. So this one, as well as a lot of books on my worst list, this one wasn't as much of a worst book I read as it is just simply disappointing. And the reason this one was disappointing is because I read Junji Ito's other work, which is 𝑢𝑧𝑢, which I really enjoyed. So because I loved that one, I thought I would love 𝑇𝑜𝑑𝑎𝑦, but I didn't love it nearly as much as 𝑢𝑧𝑢. The main premise of this book is that it follows this girl named 𝑇꿼𝑑𝑎𝑦, and she has the ability to come back to life. But she tends to make the people around her go crazy in kind of a nonsensical way, which is another problem I have with this book. But because she makes them go crazy, they have this tendency to want to kill her. And so they'll keep killing her, but she'll keep coming back to life. And that's the never-ending cycle of this book. That's what every chapter is about. 𝑇꿼𝑑𝑎𝑦 dying, someone going crazy over her, killing her, her coming back to life, and the same thing repeats over and over and over again each chapter. And that was just so boring. It started to get really repetitive and therefore really boring. So I didn't like that about it. And I also found the character of 𝑇꿼𝑑𝑎𝑦 to be way too vain. She was just very unlikable. She was just kind of like a holier-than-thou character, and I got really sick of her attitude. And I got very irritated by the fact that all the guys around her just seemed to fall for her without even knowing her. And that also was very repetitive, of just guys falling in love with her every single chapter for no reason, when she's not even that great of a person. They just liked her because she was beautiful. And that didn't give a lot of substances to the relationships she had with these boys. However, I will say that the last half of this manga is a lot better than the first half, because the latter half of the manga has more original stories that don't involve boys falling in love with her. But overall, the whole thing wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be. So it was overall really disappointing. However, I will still check out Junji Ito's other manga because I'm still interested in those, but this one missed the mark for me completely. And number 5 best is The Score by Elle Kennedy. So I actually have 2 books from the Off-Campus series that I will be mentioning. The first one in 5th place is The Score. So the Off-Campus series, if you don't know, it follows this group of guys and their individual relationship. And all these guys are hockey players for their college. And they all live together in a house off campus. So each book follows their individual relationships. This one follows Dean and his relationship with Allie. And this one was just so good. I ended up loving Dean. He is a character that surprised me a lot, because Dean is someone who comes across as very much of a player. And for that reason, I just thought, he was shallow, but he really isn't. there's so much more to him than is on the surface. And I loved getting to know the deeper side of him that's more vulnerable. That was so fascinating. And I also did love Allie. She was super sweet, super smart, just an overall great girl. And their relationship was just beautiful. They start off as kind of enemies, so it's a sort of little enemies to lovers relationship going on. And Allie specifically doesn't want anything to do with Dean. Meanwhile, Dean is trying to get her to be with him. I know this is a lot of fans of this series' favorite book in this series. It's not my favorite book in the series because, like I said, I still have one other book from this series to talk about, which is further down the list, meaning I thought it was better than this one. But I can agree that this one is one of the best ones in the series. It's definitely my second favorite in the off-campus series that I would highly recommend. The romance in this one was just to die for. At number 4th worst is another book I read recently, and that is Bully by Penelope Douglas. I will also be mentioning this one in my December wrap-up. So once again, I'll just kind of gloss over my thoughts on it here. Bully is one that I was looking forward to because I like Penelope Douglas. I liked Punk 57, that one was pretty good. And I also liked her other book, which is Birthday Girl. I actually loved that one. It was like a 5 out of 5 stars. So I've been wanting to get to more of her books. This one, though, it was just fine. I would say, again, it goes more into the disappointing side of things. I just wanted more from it, and it didn't quite meet my expectation. This one follows a bully romance, and I've come to find through Penelope Douglas, actually, because Punk 57 is also a bully romance, that bully romances aren't really my thing because I have a hard time with the concept of someone falling in love with their bully. How can you fall in love with someone who is so mean to you and harasses you? It doesn't make any sense to me. And because of that, I had a lot of trouble making sense of the relationship in this book. I also did not like the main character really much. She was just a mean girl. She was also kind of a bully herself. She was constantly hating on other girls, calling them sluts, and just making fun of their appearances in her inner monologue, and that's never okay with me. I do not approve of slut shaming. If a character slut shames, especially in their inner monologue, because I find that really sneaky to not just say that to their faces, I will instantly hate that character. So she lost major points for me for constantly slut shaming, and I quickly started to dislike her. So this one, yeah, disappointing, and I definitely won't be continuing on with the series, but I will still try out other books by Penelope Douglas because I really do like her writing style, and I do like the dark themes that are in her books. But bully romances, man, I just don't think they are for me, sadly. And at number 4th best is The Deal, which is the first book in the off-campus series and remains my favorite book in this series. I just adored this one. This book was very transformative in my reading experience. I believe that this is the book that really got me back into reading and especially got me hooked on new adult and adult romances. It is the book that really paved the way for me to transition into only reading new adult and adult romances. It's the book that made me stray away from YA. So you see what I mean? This is the book that just completely changed the direction of my reading journey. I owe it all to this book because this one just made me realize the type of content that I wanted to read. I wanted to read primarily romances, and I specifically wanted to read romances between adults now. I was kind of just, over the young adult kind of innocent romance. I wanted to read more of the spicy stuff, and this book just has all of that. So yeah, this one majorly transformed the way I pick my books now because this is all the content I want to read now. So The Deal specifically follows Garrett and Hannah, and they have this arrangement going on where Hannah agrees to tutor Garrett as long as she helps him get a guy that she really wants. So they agree to this deal, but in the process, they start falling in love with each other. One thing I love about their romance is they start off as friends and then gradually grow to fall in love with each other. That's one of my favorite romance tropes is like friends to lovers. And I feel like the deal has more darker stuff in it than the rest of this series has, which makes it funny that this is the first book in this series, because I thought the rest of the books would have the same sort of dark subjects that were in this book. And while they still do have deep subject matters in them, they don't touch anywhere near how dark this subject was. So this is definitely the darkest book in the series, I would say, even though this whole series is primarily pretty light. But this one does cover some serious subject matter that really brought the emotions out of me. It made me sob. It was just very heartbreaking but also heartwarming in the way that these characters overcome what happened in their past together. I absolutely love that. I can't wait to reread this book again someday. I'm pretty sure I'll be rereading this entire series this year maybe, because I'm obsessed with it, and I definitely love the first book. It is my favorite in the series. And my third worst, which I will say this is the most disappointing book I read this year. It was so disappointing that it hurt. And that is The Brightest Night by Jennifer L. Armentrout, the third book in the Origin series, the first book being The Darkest Star. Oh my god, y'all. I wanted to cry when I finished this. Not because of sadness for the subject matter, but because I was so disappointed in it. This is one series that I didn't want to disappoint me. I absolutely loved the first book. I thought it was great. I thought it was flawless. The second book I would also count as a disappointing read, but I still give it a 4 out of 5 stars, so it didn't quite make this list. But this one was definitely disappointing. This one I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. Reasons why it was disappointing is because it just drags. The plot is so slow, and it made it so boring. I just wanted more stuff to happen in it. This book has a lot of training sequences, which this is a series that falls on the fantasy side, so there's going to be things like training sequences, but the training period in this book just goes on for way too long. I'm like, how many scenes do we need to see of her training? I am done with it. And I just wanted to see more action. We didn't get enough of that. A brief synopsis of this series is that it does follow this world where aliens exist, and Evie, who's the main character, she falls for this alien named Luke, and it just follows their whole journey together of kind of dealing with the system that is in place to keep the aliens in check and how corrupt it is. And this whole series is basically like humans versus aliens and all that. It is such a good series in theory, but the series really does fall downhill for me. What I would have liked is if this series had just been like a duology, because the second and third book have dragged in the plot so much. I just feel like there's so many scenes throughout this series that don't need to be there. If this had just been a duology, I think the plot would have been way more consistent and easier to get through. But because this is a 4-book series, the plot just drags and drags and drags, and I don't like that. So I am disappointed in this one. I will still be reading the 4th book when it comes out this year, but I have very low expectations for it because of how downhill this series has gone for me. So this one just makes me really sad. And the third best book I read this year is One Small Thing by Erin Watt. Oh, I still think about this book and how just happy it made me. It just makes me smile. It's such a beautiful book. It's another one that I don't like giving the synopsis away on because I think this is another one that you should go into knowing so little what it's about. But I can tell you that it's about this girl named Beth, and she lives in a very strict household. Her sister died in the last few years, and for that reason her parents are very protective of her because they don't want to lose another child. So they're very strict on her. They have a curfew for her. She's rarely allowed to go out. So one night she does sneak out. She goes to this party and she meets this guy named Chase, and they really hit it off. And I'll leave it at that. You just have to read this one to really know what it is about. But I will tell you, it is heartbreaking, but so beautiful in its message. I really love the theme of forgiveness in this book. I think it is so important that young people, because this is a YA book, read this book because I think it gives such a good example of how we should be forgiving when the forgiveness isn't valid. I also love the romance. It was just beautiful. The way these two characters come together is just makes me smile. Oh my gosh, there's so many scenes between these two that were just beautiful. I cannot wait to reread this one because I know this is one I will be rereading in the future because it was just that amazing. So this is one I highly, highly recommend. And in third place for the worst book I read this year is Denna Viper. This book feels like a fever dream. I cannot believe I read this one because the content in this one is just insane. It's insanity. I could never even if I liked this book, I could not recommend it because of the content in it is just, I don't know how you could recommend this book. So Denna Vipers, it is about this mafia and they end up kidnapping this woman because her father owed them from a deal they made and he couldn't repay them, so he sold his daughter to them, which is really messed up, to pay for his debt. And so they kidnap her, they hold her hostage, she's living with them, but she starts to grow attraction for all of these men and just bangs them. And that is the whole plot of this book. That's all there is to it. Like, that's it. There is a little subplot going on, but it lasts for probably 50 pages, and this is a 600-page book. 600 pages. There is just 50 pages of actual plot going on, and then the rest is just endless sex that this woman has with all 4 of these men. And that's the book. It is insanity. There is, as I said, so many just sex scenes in this book, which is fine. Like I said, I love spice in my books. I have no problem reading content like that. But when there's so much of it with no plot, I don't like that. I'm not into that. Going into this book, I had no idea what it was about, so I didn't know that. If I had known that it was just porn with no plot, I would have never read it, but I did anyway, and God knows why I continued reading it. So for that reason, I was not into this one. Also, a lot of these sex scenes were just so disturbing. They kind of left me traumatized. There's 2 specific scenes in this book that it just left me speechless. They were insane. There's one scene that involves a knife going in a place where knives should never go, if you can fill in the blank with that, and it is so disturbing. I hated reading it. It pretty much traumatized me. And there's another scene that involves the main girl getting a tattoo while she is having sex with one of these guys. And I don't understand the logistics of that because that is so dangerous. And how can you get a tattoo while you're, doing stuff like that? It makes no sense. It was so weird. Oh my god. This one was just so weird. And I also quickly found out that I really do not like reverse harems. I'm not that into them because I like focusing on a character's individual romance with just one person. I think I would have liked it more if it had been shorter, because I feel like this is one of those books that is so bad that it is kind of entertaining because it's so bad. But because it was so long, it just got to be so boring. By the last 80 pages, I was so done with it because the main plot had already wrapped up. So pretty much all we were seeing is just sex scene after sex scene, and I was getting so bored with that. So I skimmed the last 100 pages of this book because it was just going nowhere. There is no reason why this should be a 600-page book. That is just ridiculous. And second place best book I read this year is Too Late by Colleen Huber. Yes, we've come to another Colleen Huber. I love this one. Even though it disturbed me, I also enjoyed it. This one, it follows the theme of abuse and abusive relationships. So if you are not into that, I wouldn't recommend this one. But I would still recommend it to everyone else because this book will make you think. It will also terrify you, but it has such great messages in it as well. I also appreciate this book because it's so different from anything Colleen Hoover has ever written, because this one is a lot more darker than she usually writes. She writes very emotional stuff, but this one falls more on the disturbing side. I don't feel like any of her books are as disturbing as this one is. I really love this one because the main character was so strong, and she's a character that I found a lot of other readers didn't feel the same way. They found her very weak, but I found her to be really, really strong because she is in an abusive relationship, but she really puts herself through it because she feels like she has no other choice than to take the abuse because of the situation she's in with her boyfriend. She can't leave him for financial reasons, so she forces herself to be in this situation. And the fact that she just takes it, which is so sad, and is able to just still get through day by day with him is really amazing. I think that really shows how strong she is. And actually, I found her boyfriend, which is her abuser, to be really fascinating. His motives and his backstory that make him the way he is very, very interesting. And I will say it will make you sympathize with him a little, but even though I sympathize with what he went through, I still did not feel like that justified for him abusing his girlfriend whatsoever. But I still couldn't help but feel bad for him because of what he went through. And this one does have a romance with the main character outside of her boyfriend, which is very, very sweet. I love how this new guy in her life was so supportive of her and really helped her get through her abuse the best that he could, despite the situation that he was in that kind of made it to where it was very risky to help her out. He decided to anyway. And because it was so risky for him to help her out, that just made me love him even more because he was willing to risk his career in order to help her, and that speaks volumes on the kind of man that he is. I love this one. It will make you think, it will disturb you, but it's also such a great story, so gripping. I read this one so quickly, so I would highly recommend. If you're able to handle the subject matter, definitely do read this one. And the number one worst book I read in 2021 is The Silver Swan. Oh man, this one was so bad. Oh my god. It's kind of crazy because I read this one really, really quickly. I will say this one is very easy to read and fly through, but the actual subject matter and the characters are just so terrible. This one, it's about this girl. It is a new adult book, but it takes place in high school, so she's a senior. She's at this new school and she meets this group of guys who are very mysterious. And for that reason, she wants to get to know about them more. And these guys end up doing just a really crazy stuff to her. At one point, they kidnap her. One of them forces himself on her, forces her to kiss him, and it's really disturbing. And yet she constantly still wants to get to know these guys and hang out with them, even though they harass her. It makes no sense at all. She gets specifically involved with one of these guys who is just terrible to her, is so mean to her. I don't understand what she ever saw in him. He's also so bland. He was like a wannabe bad boy, and it was really irritating. And the main character specifically is another mean girl. She slut shames. She's mean to other girl. Every other girl is trying to steal her man, and for that reason she hates them. And it's just so freaking annoying. I don't understand why so many girl main characters can't just love and respect other women. Why is that so hard? It's so frustrating. She would just slut shame so many girls, and in this case it was more frustrating because this girl would do the same exact things the girl she was slut shaming was doing. She would also kiss a bunch of guys. She kissed so many guys in this book. she would also dress like they did. So I don't understand her logic with slut-shaming other girls when she does the exact same things they do. I am getting so heated up. This is like exactly my feelings for this book. This book gets me so heated because it's so terrible. I hated this one. Oh my god. I definitely do not recommend. It's funny because I had seen this one going around on YouTube, and I still read it even though it got kind of bad reviews on YouTube and all that, because the subject kind of interested me. All the other reviews were right. It's not great. So definitely no, don't pick this one up. I will for sure not be continuing on with this series because it was a mess. And we're on to my favorite book I read in 2021. This was a hard choice. I would say this one and Too Late are at the same level because it was really hard to choose between them. But I went with this one, and that is November 9 by Colleen Huber. Oh my god, I loved this book. Oh my gosh, this is one of the only books I have ever read in close to one sitting. I did take a few breaks between reading it, but I basically read it in one sitting in one day. That is unheard of for me. I just inhaled this one. So November 9, it is about this girl named Fallon, and she meets this guy named Ben, and they decide that once a year, they're going to meet one day out of the year, and that day is November 9. And they're doing this because, for one, Fallon is moving out of town. She's going to New York City, so she's going to be leaving even though she met this guy that she had like an instant connection with. She's going to be leaving, so that's one of the reasons. And also because Ben is an author, and he wants to write a book based on their scenario of them meeting on one day a year and their potential love story that could happen from that. And so as they meet every November 9th, they start to fall more and more in love with each other, and that makes it hard for them to go a whole year without seeing each other, because for the rest of the year they make a rule that they will not contact each other through phone or email, none of that. They have to wait until November 9th to see and talk to each other. So it makes it harder when every November 9th ends and they have to go without seeing each other when they're falling more in love with each other. It's so interesting because going into this book, I thought that it would be very hard to develop this relationship, because how can two characters have a strong romantic relationship when they only see and communicate with each other one day out of the whole year? But you will be surprised on how great the connection with these two characters is right off the bat. It's not quite instant love, but they just have this instant connection with each other that is so seamless. They have such great chemistry together. And it's for that reason you find their relationship to be so believable, even though it happens pretty quickly. And I will say, because it's a Colleen Huber book, there will be emotional stuff in it. The last, I would say, 100 pages had me sobbing nonstop, just continuously crying. It is heartbreaking, but also so beautiful. You gotta read this one if you haven't yet. I would say wait till November 9th to read this one, because I read this one on November 9th and that made the experience so much more cooler. But I would say you shouldn't wait all those months to read this one. You need to read this one right away because it was amazing. So please do so. And those were the best and worst books that I read in 2021. I hope you guys enjoyed my list. Let me know your favorite and least favorite book you read this year in the comments. I would really like to know. And let me know if you agreed with me on any of these books if you read them, because I would also like to know. And I guess that's it. I think this is the last video I will be putting out this year. Let me see. I have it on my computer. I think it is, though. Yes, it is. So with that, I will say I will see you in 2022, and let's hope it's going to be a great year. If you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more anime-related videos and book-related videos. And also be sure to follow me on social media if you would like to. Those links are in the description box. And I am going to mention one more thing. I have a schedule now. I have an uploading schedule. I plan to upload Tuesdays and Saturdays. I'm going to try my best to stick to that schedule. I'm sure there will be some days, because my work schedule is really non-consistent that I won't miss, but I am going to try my best to stick to that schedule because I've been wanting to do an uploading schedule again just to have more consistency on my uploads. So that's why I'm making it. So we're gonna try this out and I hope it works out. Anyway, I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.